I would call less than 10%, all things are possible in this world. All things are possible in the stock market. But the chances Tesla would do an equity offering to get more cash at this point in time, I would call it less than a 10% probability. That's just insane. Tesla stock is down 60% plus from where the stock was back in the peak of 2021. So stock price is down massively. So to do an equity offering when your stock's down massively doesn't usually make sense. Secondly, Tesla's loaded with tens of billions of dollars of cash on their balance sheet. So there's really no reason for them to get money. And they're profitable. And if anything, they're going to be much more profitable in future years than where they're at right now. So that's crazy. And where's debt at for this company? It's non-existent. So they're just like none of that made any dang sense. Okay, that's. I mean, if Tesla was $500 a share right now, maybe it's different because they're kind of looking in like, oh, maybe the stock's overvalued. Let's go ahead and raise some capital. We can make some interest income on that. But here, come on.
Again, Tesla is now going to be going to shareholders, asking them to vote again on Elon Musk's multi-billion-dollar pay package that they had already granted back in 2018. The Delaware court had voided that package about 3 months ago. Join us right now to talk about this on the Squawk Newsline. Former SEC Chairman Jake Clayton, also a CNBC contributor. The appeal is going to happen in parallel. They're going to continue that, but it appears that such a vote, if in fact it was to vote in favor of it, Jay, would make any type of appeal moot. What do you make of this idea that they're basically going to attach the decision to the proxy and say, hey, we've just, if the judge didn't think we disclosed everything before, we've disclosed everything now?
Well, I think you've captured it exactly right, Andrew. Here we go back out to shareholders, and we say, you have the facts, and now you have the benefit of all this hindsight. And if you vote in favor of the same package again, to me, and I'm speaking just very, 30,000 foot level, it does obviate the need for the appeal. And look, appeal process, court process is fairly messy. And if you go to direct to shareholders and they have all the information, that seems to be a much more efficient way to deal with this. If, in fact, shareholders want to continue with this pay package. And what I'll note is, this is all part of, I would imagine, retention of Mr. Musk going forward as well.
And that's the big leverage point in this, which is to say, I think a shareholder has to worry or would have to think about whether they should be worried that he's going to, focus his attention elsewhere. Having said that, as the judge said, he already owns a huge portion of Tesla. Is he incentivized to keep going, if you will?
Well, shareholders made the judgment. Look, whether shareholders knew or did not know of the conflicts and what the judge cited was lack of process and the like at the time. When shareholders voted on this in 2018, they certainly understood the economics.
Yep.
It was widely reported. You widely reported. I think it was a 25, 30 to 1 shot that this would pay off. The expected value at the time was $2 billion. The shareholders, the sophisticated shareholders, they knew what they were voting.
But Jay, so that's the interesting part about this, which is to say, you're right. In 2018, everyone thought this was a completely shoot for the moon, as I said at the time, the skin in the game program. But and that was thought, but the context was different. Everybody was thinking about it prospectively, and they thought, you know what, if magically this actually were to somehow come to be, God bless, you'd be very happy to pay it. However,
yeah, it's such a bunch of crap. It's such a bunch of crap in terms of everybody, being against, or the judge being against us and people being against us now. Because think about it, right? It's like, oh, you made us all a lot of money, so now you're going to get paid. I have no issue with this. Like, Elon and Tesla made me a ton of money over the years, right? I made a fortune from that stuff, like crazy. I called my house, I live in the house that Tesla built for a reason. This stock, changed the game for me. But, so am I jealous that Elon Musk is getting a bunch of money and I think that shouldn't happen? No, he deserves it. Good for him. He pulled it off, right? Now, with that being said, let me say this, okay? Let's say Elon left Tesla this year, next year, whatever, okay? Is Tesla doomed at that point in time? No, it's not. The rocket ship's already been set up. Elon's already put this company on a great path for the next 10, 20 years. So even if Elon decided, I'm leaving Tesla, I want nothing to do with it, which, by the way, I hope that doesn't happen. I would love to have Elon continue to be on the team. But if, let's say he's like, you know what, I'm out of Tesla. I'll be on the board or something, but I'm not going to run the company anymore. The company's already set up. The robotaxi's already in place. The FSD is already in place. The employee force is already in place. The factory's already in place. The international expansion is already in place. The vehicle's set for the next 10 plus years already in place. Everything's already there. So at this point in time, if Elon did leave, it doesn't make the biggest difference because it's no different than Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs set up Apple, obviously, in kind of from about 2000 to 2010. Steve Jobs set up Apple for the next 15 years, right? And that company was they're ready for the next 15 years. Him and Johnny Ive. And now if I look at what Elon and Franz have done over the past many years, they've set Tesla up for the next 15 years. Like Tesla's going to grow their revenues to ridiculous levels over this next 10 to 15 years, and their profits and the scale of the company and all those sorts of things. So I would love Elon to stay with the company, but like I said, if he left, like Tesla, the rocket ship's already ready at this point in time. So that is what that is.
As you know, there are lots of people that when they get in a position and they can now look back and say, do I need to pay all $50 billion? If I could cut that by $10 billion or $20 billion, would I? And I think that's going to be the question today. And, they did say, Tesla, that there are 4 of the largest shareholders in the company that want this vote and want to vote in favor of it. But I'm curious how you think shareholders should think about this, even the ones that voted in favor of it the first time.
Well, I do believe, and Andrew, I'm not an expert on the terms of this pay package. I do believe that there's a retention element.
Yes.
If the shares are awarded as planned in 2018.
For 5 years. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I thought the program was actually so aligned with shareholders. He has not been granted any of the shares yet. And even if he were to get them today, he would still have to hold them for another 5 years. So he's with the shareholders for the next 5-year ride.
So I think you're right to think about this in both ways. What was originally granted? If you're a shareholder, what are the likelihood that it's going to be reversed on appeal and go back to the same way? And then what's the likelihood that you're going to have to replace it if it's not reversed on appeal with something similar? A rational shareholder may say, hey, let's just vote for this and get on with it.
From an SEC perspective, Jay, are there no issues to be looked into? I mean, can a company put up for vote a pay package for work that was done in the past, which is kind of unusual? I mean, how do you think about, if you were still at the SEC, how would you think about this?
Well, look, the SEC is a disclosure-based organization, and the real question here is the disclosure sufficient for people to make an informed voting decision? In this one, of course, the SEC is going to look at it and think about it, but this may be the most disclosed and examined pay package in the history of pay packages.
Yes, it is. Very well said.
Final thought, Jay, which is there was obviously a plaintiff's lawyer that brought this case, and we were talking about the possibility that the plaintiff's lawyer could actually become part of a proxy campaign against the approval of this. What would happen to the appeal if this, in fact, were to be voted and approved? Do you think that Tesla says they're going to continue with the appeal? Part of that would be because they'd have to probably pay the legal fees for the plaintiff's lawyer, right?
Look, let's separate that from the shareholder voting process. It's America. Wonderful thing about America is we're going to hear all sorts of opinions on whether people should vote yes or no with the disclosure. In terms of how the court plays out and whether the plaintiffs at the end of the day added value for the
right.
Tesla shareholders, that will be that question. Did this process add value, and should they be compensated for it?
We got to run. Is it maybe we're playing it down? I don't know. The Texas piece of this, they're going to move to Texas. That had been sort of telegraphed. Do you think that other companies are going to follow suit?
Andrew, corporate governance has been evolving for 50 years between the states and between the federal government and the like, and there has been competition for shareholders and corporations as to where they're going to incorporate. I do think that Texas, Nevada, others are challenging Delaware. And look, our federal system, it's appropriate to have competition. And I don't think I don't think this is necessarily a race to the bottom.
So, before we get into this great debate, Tesla bears and bulls, Elon, here's the deal, okay? I know a lot of Tesla shareholders. Do I know any Tesla shareholder who doesn't believe this pay package should go through? I don't personally know one. Not one. So, and especially folks that have been on this train for the last 5-10 years. Everybody who's, and if you think about where the stock was prior to this announcement about the pay package getting declined, it was in a lot better place, right? So if anything, this has hurt the stock. So, we'll see. We'll see. All right, next one up here. Let's get into the great debate. Tesla, my Tesla.
35% year to date, and the company now set to report earnings next week. Analysts divided on where the stock's heading from here. And so is the investment committee, it turns out. Bryn long, why short? Bryn, make your case. Why should we still believe in this stock story?
Well, the stock right now doesn't look good. So let's just separate the two, the stock from the company. Make no mistake, the chart looks terrible. Don't forget that in January of 2023, I bought it around 120. This stock got to, I think, $100 during the early part
101.
Of one day of trading.
101.
And that's with earnings estimates of $5 for full year 23. So we're not even going to sniff that this year. So this stock could go lower. Let me make that clear. It looks broken right now. Why I would not what I wouldn't discount is Elon, is I think he's one of the most, prolific innovators and engineers of our time with SpaceX. Literally, I think NASA would be defunded with what he's done with energy storage and EVs and then at Neuralink. And so I do think, though, he is going to have right now between this earnings report, which will be bad, and the shareholder package, I think it's very murky right now because make no mistake, part of this valuation is based on sentiment and also
Investor question. When's the best time to buy a stock? When things are murky, when things are scary.
valuations, margins, and earnings expanding. So I see absolutely why Steve is short. I don't think he's going to be short long term. I think it's probably a trade. But I think longer time, we will get some clarity. And this will be, over the next few months, a potentially good opportunity to add or buy to the position.
My question for Bryn, and I'm not trying to be difficult with this, is that as a fiduciary of her investors' capital, how could she invest in a company where there is no governance, there is no independent voice on the board, where they've gone out and made an acquisition like Solar City, right, to stop it from failing because it was his brother's company and because the federal government told SpaceX, you've got to stop buying Solar City bonds with the money we're giving you for R&D, where he's tried to buy, use Tesla to buy material for his house, the windows, where he wants a $55.
Oh, you want to know, Steve Weish? I can show you. I can show you how she puts her investors' money in that stock, okay? Here's the deal. The stock since IPO is up 9,684%. And despite all the drama and bad stuff that has happened over the past 5 years for the stock, it is still up 753%. That is how, Mr. Steve Weish, when a company performs, their revenues go beast, their profits go beast, the company does great and has a great long-term future, it usually makes sense to buy the stock.
$1 billion pay package, and where we saw Jack Dorsey with 2 companies, we've got Elon Musk with multiple companies that all require his time. Plus, there's the allegations, and we saw it on Joe Rogan's broadcast, of drug use. So how's a fiduciary own this company with anti-shareholder governance repeatedly time after time after time? Isn't it worth just passing shareholder governance? So how's a, and we saw it on Joe Rogan's broadcast, of drug use. So how's a fiduciary own this company with anti-shareholder governance repeatedly time after time after time? Isn't it worth just passing on this and going to something you don't have to explain owning?
Yeah, well, I own this personally, first of all. This is a personal position. So I think, we love to own broad-based ETFs for the majority of our client base. So this is not a fiduciary decision. This is my decision. And so I think that, what you're pointing out, these things, I think you just don't like Elon. And so I think that if you separate yourself and say, look at this company,
That's well put.
I think that's the truth, right?
I'm not
And so
showing
it's
sentiments.
look at this-
Everything I say is a fact, Bryn. It's a fact.
I know.
Wait a
why,
minute.
why do you?
Run
Why does
generator
like
has run
he's a
dry.
grown man
It
and he?
shuts off.
I don't know, the
Our
Joe Rogan
pilots
thing is
will
just
go
like
offline and the
strange,
trucks
and that was
won't
years
work.
ago.
It's not just Joe
So I
Rogan.
think that if you just
Read
look at
Isaac
the
says that.
company. If you look at the company, and when you still look at the two companies where the best engineers want to work, is our SpaceX and Tesla. Because this is not an Elon show as well, although it feels that way. He has to be able to retain top talent. And I think as it relates to Tesla specifically, being pragmatic about the company, as I said, the chart looks terrible. And they are in a very murky situation right now because it feels like, are you going to be a car company that's balancing higher revenues, higher earnings and margins, and then also innovating at the same time with full self-driving, more energy and robotaxi? Or are you going to do a full pivot to robotaxi? I think if they come out and do that, that's a revaluation of the name on the downside because that is probably 5 to 10 years out. So
By the
I think that, yeah.
By the way, Weiss, sorry, Bryn, if this is principally a governance-related story,
That's one aspect of it.
sounds like it's a major one. However, you could, right? Major.
And even put that aside, the fundamentals deteriorating. We've hit the limit in terms of the EV adoption. They've got the oldest EV lineup in the industry globally. They've got 20% of their revenues coming from China. We've seen what China has done. Okay, we've seen Apple move their supply chain to India, and they've got better relationships and longer-standing relationships with the Chinese government. We've seen China. China is supporting their domestic producers that, by the way, make newer, more richer in terms of the accessories, in terms of
That's not even a fact. He's saying a lot of stuff that's not even like fact. Like, Apple has a lot better relationships, stronger relationships with China than Tesla. Based on what? Are you inside those conversations? Do you know what Tim Cook and the Chinese talk about? Do you know what Elon and the Chinese talk about? Do you know who the Chinese have more respect for? Do they have more respect for Tim Cook and Apple? Or do they have more respect for Tesla and Elon Musk? You think you know all this? Like, that's just like opinion-based stuff. Like, if anything, I think they have the utmost respect for Mr. Elon Musk over there and what he's done with Tesla, right? I mean, they've done things and rolled out the red carpet in ways for Tesla that we've never seen for anybody, not just in the auto sector, but even for companies like Apple, the way they've rolled out the red carpet over there. So, to just say, Apple's having a hard time and Apple's got strong relationships, that's just opinion. Like, you have no clue if they do or not.
Basically, even the range, so of their cars than Tesla. That's number two.
Yeah.
Number three, we've seen Elon just tweet out, no more prices, we're raising prices. He lied. They're cutting prices. We would say, big robo-taxi announcement. We secured funding for the take private. The guy is a pathological liar to keep his stock price up. So forgetting about that, the fundamentals deteriorating. You've